Hi, my name is Samantha, and I'm the Adult Services Librarian at the McGirt-Horton Branch of the Greensboro Public Library. I wanted to tell you a little bit about a book that we just received into McGirt-Horton. It's called Revolution in Black and White: Photographs of the Civil Rights Era by Ernest C. Withers. This book draws on dozens of interviews and archival research and is the first to show the full range of Ernest C. Withers' work in context. It's a really beautiful book full of beautiful photographs, and I would highly recommend it for anyone who is interested in art, photography, the segregated South, or the Civil Rights Movement. Ernest C. Withers was born in Memphis, Tennessee on August 7, 1922. He had always been interested in photography and received training at the Army School of Photography during World War II. Ernest Withers worked for 60 years documenting images of the segregated South, starting his career as a commercial photographer, but going on to take iconic images of the Civil Rights Movement, life on Beale Street, and the Emmett Till trial. Ernest Withers is estimated to have taken anywhere between 1 and 5 million photographs during his career. Revolution in Black and White is divided into 8 sections, each dedicated to a various theme of his work. The first section of the book begins at the beginning of Ernest Withers' career, while he was working commercially to photograph families, churches, schools, and other local organizations. This image is of a crowd at Martin Stadium, home of the Memphis Red Sox, a Negro League baseball team. This is an image from the prom of Manassas High School in 1961. The next section is devoted to Withers' images of blues performers in and around Memphis. Because the white press did not report on the Black music scene, Withers stated, quote, "Anything that you chronicled or recorded was always news. A show and tell. Look what you missed," unquote. Some of the performers he saw and captured include Big Maybelle, pictured here, this iconic image of B.B. King, and Elvis Presley, another hometown Memphis hero who was also very proud of his roots. The 2 unidentified boys pictured here were performers on Memphis radio station WDIA, which exclusively played Black music and programming. Ernest Withers' images of Beale Street, the heart and soul of Black life in Memphis, capture the time, place, and feeling of that moment. Beale Street was the commercial center of the Black community, and by night became the entertainment center. Ernest Withers had a photograph studio on Beale Street for much of his career and took thousands of photos on this one street. Memphis attorney DeArmy Bailey says of these Beale Street images that, quote, "We had our portraits made to reinforce our own stereotypes, which were positive. We had a lot of self-pride, and pictures provided an affirmation of how clean we were in our own minds." The 4th section of the book focuses on the 1955 murder and trial of Emmett Till, a 14-year-old Black boy in Mississippi who was abducted, beaten, and shot by 2 white men. Withers was among a dozen other African-American journalists and photojournalists who were instructed that they could only take pictures while court was not in session. As you can see, Withers did not exactly follow these instructions. This first picture is of the crowd at the trial. This historic photo is of the moment that Moses Wright points out the 2 men he saw drag away his great-nephew Emmett Till. Withers says that this photo was taken over the shoulder of a deputy sheriff who clearly did not hear the click of the camera. The next section of the book documents the 1960 plight of sharecropping families who were evicted from their homes because they attempted to register to vote. 8 families took refuge in tents, that were placed on land owned by an African-American farmer who allowed these families to live there for free. Tent City, or Freedom Village, was thus born. These unidentified children were some of the residents of Tent City. Tent City was supported by civil rights organizations, religious groups, labor unions, Black fraternal organizations, and students from all over the country. Students from northern universities began to travel to Tent City to register voters, promote Black candidates, and work for integration. Some of these volunteers are pictured here. Ernest Withers began photographing Martin Luther King Jr. at the end of the Montgomery bus boycott in 1956. He continued to photograph Martin Luther King Jr. on and off until his death. Some of Withers' best-known photographs are those taken of MLK Jr. during the peak of the civil rights movement. This photograph of Martin Luther King Jr. and Ralph Abernathy in the front row of a Montgomery, Alabama bus was taken on the day that the city's public transit system was desegregated. When schools in the South began to desegregate, Ernest Withers was, of course, there with his camera. This image of first graders Michael Willis, Harry Williams, and Dwania Kyles was taken on October 3rd, 1961, on their first day at an all-white school. It took hundreds of Memphis police officers to keep them safe. Geraldine Nealand, Rose Fields, and an unidentified woman are shown marching on Main Street in Memphis on the day in September 1961 when 30 Black women turned in their credit cards to department stores as a way of protesting segregation. Renee Andrunetta Jones was only 8 months old when her father, William Edwin Jones, took her to her first demonstration in 1961. This photograph shows the thousands of protesters who took to the streets of downtown Memphis following the murder of Martin Luther King on April 4th, 1968. Ernest C. Withers himself died at his house in Memphis in 2007, though his legacy and that of thousands of Black Americans living in the segregated South continues to live on through his photographs. If you'd like to find more books on photography, you can find them at any of the Greensboro Public Library locations in the 770s. If you'd like to read more about history of the southeastern United States, you can find those books in 975. And if you're interested in learning more about civil and political rights, you can find those titles in 323. And if you would like to check out Revolution in Black and White, you can find this book at McGirt-Horton Library on the new bookshelf. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you at the library soon.